heard of the little engine that could? Well, how about the little snail? You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of Turbo.
What's happening to me? The Indy 500.
This is ridiculous. A snail cannot race in a competition meant for cars.
Let's do this.
For over a decade, Pixar and Dreamworks Animation have been locked in a heated competition on par with the rivalry between Marvel and DC. With a seemingly endless stream of Oscars and rave reviews from critics and fans alike, Pixar quickly established their identity as the animation studio with a heart and a brain. Meanwhile, Dreamworks Animation gained a reputation that they were more concerned with their bank account, with its star-studded casts and a focus more on modern-day jokes and pushing the edge of the envelope creatively. But fast forward to today, where Pixar seems to have sold its soul for the success that sequels bring, while Dreamworks Animation has grown a heart and a brain, while still watching its bank account. Their reputation began to change with How to Train Your Dragon, a sleeper hit written and directed by, ironically, an animator that Pixar's parent company Disney had fired, Lilo & Stitch's Chris Sanders. Sanders went on to deliver for Dreamworks Animation again this year as he was brought on to fix The Croods, and did such a good job, the underestimated flick is to date the fourth highest grossing film of the year, with $588 million worldwide. And now here comes Turbo, perhaps the pinnacle of all that Dreamworks Animation has built to date. The film is written and directed by longtime Dreamworks Animation employee David Soren, his first feature after working as a story artist and then writer-director on 2 Madagascar TV specials. It features another star-studded cast with Ryan Reynolds, Paul Giamatti, Michael Pena, Ken Jeong, and Samuel L. Jackson. Yet what audiences might perceive as a step backward for Dreamworks Animation, blatantly and crassly ripping off Pixar's Cars franchise, is actually a perfect example of how they are edging past their competitor. In hindsight, Cars and Cars 2 have come to be regarded as low points for Pixar, blatant and crass cash grabs. However, with Turbo, Dreamworks Animation has actually taken the time to craft the most realistic racing movie to date thanks to a partnership with IndyCar, who runs the Indianapolis 500, which is featured heavily and apparently lovingly and accurately in the film. But don't think that Dreamworks Animation has forgotten about that bank account. Turbo is their second feature to be released under their lucrative new deal with 20th Century Fox, and on July 17th, Turbo Fast will debut on Netflix as the streaming site's first original animated series, all part of another new deal Dreamworks Animation has recently struck. Looks like Dreamworks Animation has become the full package. But just to be safe, I'll take Turbo for a test drive for you. So I did take Turbo for a test drive, and I find myself at a crossroads. There were so many excellent aspects of this movie. Really, like, I was just blown away sitting in my seat at times during this film. But you'll notice I said at times. And the crossroads is that I'm reluctant to recommend you go see a film that for, I'd say, a decent amount of the movie, I was a little bored. I checked out a little bit. Which I found very odd, because a little bit like The Lone Ranger, there were such wonderful aspects. I was like, why isn't this more engaging? So let's first talk about the positives of the film. I really was impressed across the board, particularly with the animation. The animation, there are points in this movie when they have like still life. Like there's one shot of like a teapot, a tea kettle, in a windowsill in this house with a garden around it. And you would think you were looking at live action. It's that well animated. And then like a little cartoon snail comes in and you're like, oh yeah, it's a Dreamworks animated movie. They still have like, I wonder why they continue to choose to go with like fake looking humans and animals in these kind of movies, considering how realistic they can get with everything else. I guess it would have that, I guess they'd just be making a Robert Zemeckis motion capture movie at that point, and we all know how those do. So the animation was just, not only was it good in the quality in terms of the realism, but I thought that this was a very well-directed movie. I thought that it had great energy. I really felt that it pulled you in. It was very inventive. It was very creative. It wasn't just like, oh, just like put the camera up here. I mean, the animators knew they could do anything, and they tried to do anything, and often succeeded. So that was really impressive. Also, I have to tell you on a side note, I think snails are adorable. I had pet snails when I was a little bit from when I was a kid, and I just think they're really cute. They eat like sandpaper when they crawl on it. They're just really adorable. So I kind of got a kick out of watching the snails in the movie anyway, so they kind of pre-sold me a little bit there. But so the animation was great, the snails were great. Also the voice work was wonderful. This reminds me of why I liked Ryan Reynolds so much in the first place. It's great to see him cut loose and not worry about being like a leading man. I think he kind of, got a little distracted, just like a lot of actresses get distracted by wanting to be like considered super hot and super great actresses, and it kind of like takes their personality away. I think Emma Stone is even suffering from that a little bit. I think that she's lost a lot of, I think when she went blonde, she lost a lot of the spunk that made her so successful. We'll see. But Ryan Reynolds, I think when he got abs, he also lost a lot of his spunk. So here it's great to see him not have to worry about how he looks because he's just doing voice work, and he's really does a fantastic job. But everyone does a great job, everyone across the board. But also the other thing that I loved about this movie, two other things. I loved, first of all, they work in partnership with IndyCar, which runs the Indianapolis 500. And I was on the red carpet. The red carpet coverage will be up today if it's not already up. And I talked to a lot of race car drivers, and they talked about how realistic the depiction of the Indy 500 is in this film. And you can tell when watching the film how realistic it is. It makes you want to go to the Indianapolis 500. I think they did a great job creating the environment of the racing, what it's like, how it looks, the feel, and it's just really, really impressive. It makes you wonder why Cars overlooked such an obvious partnership themselves over at Pixar when they made the film. It's like, why wouldn't you do this? It seems so obvious. So that was really great. And also, the other thing that I loved about this movie, and I talked about it on the red carpet with Louise Gussman, and he had a great answer for it, but so check that out to see what he said. But I love the fact that this movie took place in East LA. How many family animated films take place in East LA at like a strip mall with like a nail salon, a hobby shop, and a taco stand? That was just really great. And I thought, I know that some of you get upset when I talk about diversity on this show, but diversity is becoming a way of life in the world, in America. I think pretty soon there will be no majority in terms of race in this country. And I think it's actually heading towards, I believe I read that the Latinos will be the biggest population in the United States soon. So I think that it's really smart of DreamWorks Animation to embrace that, whereas I feel Hollywood, just like Fast and Furious has, and I'll be interested to see if Turbo shares that same success, although I don't know if it will, because you don't see this in the advertising at all. But it's nice because Hollywood usually tries to pedal backward to like a whitewashed, white picket fence America. So I thought that was cool about this movie. So all that stuff was really, really great. And there are moments in the film, because this is a film about reaching for your dreams, and I thought it had moments where that was really apparent and really sold well, and they captured that feeling really well, and it was just beautiful. So why did I get bored sometimes? I feel a snail that can go really fast is just a little bit of a tough sell. I think that there's only so much you can do with it. I think that if I really were hard pressed, I could come up with some B storylines for you, but there's no like really huge B storyline. I think it's a very one-note film. It's about getting the snail to race, and of course there are stakes, but there aren't like parallel storylines. It's not a very rich story. It's a fun story. Also, I felt there were some instances where the film was a little vaguely irresponsible. Like for instance, Turbo gets his powers by basically drinking a lot of NOS, which is that light blue fluid that they put in cars to make them go fast. And I think you might have to have a conversation with a child about there are no shortcuts in life. Superpowers only exist in the movies and comics. Don't go drinking NOS because you think it might make you go really fast. But you know what? If you're an animation fan at all, in any way, you should definitely see this movie, and 100% see it in 3D. Really fantastic 3D. 3D excels in animated films, but this one in particular. So if you're into animated movies, I think this is definitely worth seeing. And you know what? If it's a hot weekend and you want to go sit in an air-conditioned theater with a soda and a popcorn, I also think this is it's a good movie to see. But I don't think it would be a crime if you waited to see it. Actually, if you're going to see it at all, see it in theaters. I don't think it's going to be as good on the small screen in 2D. So if you're going to see it in 3D in theaters while it's out. But if you don't go to see it, I don't think it would be like the worst thing to ever happen. All right, so that's my review of Turbo. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out these other videos. Bye.